There is a rumor going around about somebody that is quite contentious within comic book readers associated with Marvel Comics. The rumor is that Sana Amanat, somewhat recently, was likely fired from Marvel Comics. Now, I cannot confirm that. Marvel obviously hasn't said anything. And if you go to Sana Amanat's Twitter account, her social media, you will see that it still says that she's associated with Marvel Comics. But I do believe this is not just likely the case. Like, she was fired. I actually made a video at the very end of 2020 with my predictions for 2021, and one of them was that Sana Amanat would in fact be let go by Marvel Comics within the calendar year. Obviously, I'm a few months off, but that was not just mere, like, I didn't pull that one out of my butt. I'd actually heard about these allegations that have been placed against Sana Amanat quite a long time ago. I think this has been going on for I think a year and a half now, that she's been in a bit of hot water, not just with Marvel Comics, but really with Disney. There were HR complaints. The best way that I can describe them, because I'm not going to get in here to, I don't know, talking about them, because I wasn't there. I only heard hearsay and whatnot, but it sounded like, from my perspective, as somebody that was a leader in the military, has also worked with other folks in leadership positions, I would call it an unprofessional work relationship or unprofessional behavior in the workspace, something along those lines. If you've worked in management positions in the past, or perhaps had an HR complaint filed against you, you might know kind of where I'm coming from, just as far as the nature of the allegations against Sana Amanat. It appears that this finally came down maybe as late as last week. Maybe it was a little bit earlier than that, but it's very recent that this finally came out, and the judgment, if you want to call it that, about the future work status of Sana Amanat at Marvel Comics actually came down. You will not get a confirmation out of Marvel Comics or Disney. They don't really do that. A lot of times when they let people go, you actually will never hear a peep of it. Actually, Marvel let go of a ton of editors like last year, and no one ever heard about it. Remember when DC had some of their editors fired? They called it Bloody Monday or Bloody Friday, and then they had a second one when they fired some more people, and everybody was acting like the entire company was burning down. Marvel had something similar to that. I'm not sure the exact extent, because apparently they are much better at guarding secrets or keeping secrets than the, I don't know, corporate culture over at DC Comics, Warner Media, AT&T, whatever they've got going on there. They were much more up in arms and telling everybody what was going on. Whereas at Marvel, shockingly, they're better at guarding secrets, and it doesn't quite get out in the open. Now, with that being said, Sana Amanat is no longer at Marvel Comics. If it isn't a completely official, like at this very moment, it will be very soon. What does that mean for Marvel Comics? I know a lot of people act as if Sana Amanat is the shadow governor of Marvel or something like that, or the shadow EIC, and CB Cebulski himself actually answered to Sana Amanat. From what I've been told, that is not the case, and certainly hasn't been the case since I've had my channel. I've had a few sources that I've been able to get into there that have given me an idea of what Sana Amanat's role was in Marvel Comics. I've talked about it more on the live streams, really than making a video, because I didn't find it all that interesting. She did play a large role in the creation of Miss Marvel and some new characters early on in her run at Marvel Comics. She wasn't a writer. I believe she actually started her Marvel career as an editor, but got moved up very short order to like the vice president in charge of character development. It's something like that. I can't remember the exact job title, but that has been her position at Marvel for some time. I have been told that she has an eye, or had an eye, at bigger and better opportunities within the the Disney ecosphere as far as moving up the ladder. While there was certainly a time that Sana Amanat was heavily promoted as being an important piece of the Marvel Comics family, and obviously had the meeting with the president, and they got the big photo op and stuff like that. We haven't really actually heard anything from Sana Amanat being associated really with Marvel Comics for quite some time. I believe it's because of this investigation. But before that, as far as I know, she didn't have a lot to do with the actual publication or the creative directions of Marvel Comics themselves. This is the way I would explain it. This is just from my perspective, and using an analogy that I have seen within my work environment when I was in the military. There are meetings with the brass, as we would call them in the military, the executives, the higher up people. And every once in a while, you'll see somebody that's supposed to be working with you, but they're always snaking themselves into these bigger meetings, and they actually like produce nothing for the job that they're supposed to be doing, or the people that they're working with, because they're trying to be associated with people with bigger and better, job opportunities ahead. And I've heard that she's kind of a snake in the grass in that way, that she's always trying to move out of Marvel Comics and get in with people and, maybe appear, at least on the surface, as being much more vital to the Marvel Comics brand than she actually is. So do I think there will be any large-scale changes now that Sana Amanat has been shown the door at Marvel Comics? Absolutely not. There's no indications, and from the people that I have talked to that were forthright, or as much as they could be, that she actually really did anything to contribute to the current crop of Marvel Comics being put out, the creative direction, the hiring process, for the most part, or any of that stuff. CB Cebulski, to my knowledge, never answered to Sana Amanat, either directly or indirectly. She was actually never the shadow governor of Marvel Comics. She certainly had friends in high places and was somebody in the office that you wouldn't want to make mad because they had friends, and you could get yourself a little bit of hot water. But for the most part, the day-to-day operations and the comic books that Marvel have been putting out for years now have nothing at all to do with her. Her role within Marvel Comics and what is being produced has been greatly, greatly, greatly exaggerated over the years. And she really, I don't know, as far as I could tell, there will likely be absolutely zero changes that you or I will see as comic book customers that will come out because of this. Obviously, she is heavily associated with Kamala Khan, Miss Marvel. Now, we do know that Marvel and DC in the past, if they do not like people, and they don't want to send them royalty checks, they will stop using their characters. They'll actually stop reprinting their material and trades and stuff like that. It's really petty. If you ever hear the behind the stuff seeds with the comic book industry, you will realize just how much it's like I don't know, it's like being in middle school again. It's the craziest stuff. That's why I'm glad I'm here, and I don't want to work with either of these companies, because I wouldn't be able to handle that. I'm actually a grown man, and I cannot handle that kind of stupid drama. They have been petty in the past, and they might be mad at Sana Amanat for what happened, and the fact that if this ever gets out, it probably will be embarrassing for the company and the atmosphere and the culture associated with Marvel Comics, not only as a brand, but specifically as the leadership who was in charge at that moment, although obviously she was dealt with. But it is completely clear that not only Marvel, but Disney have enormous plans for Kamala Khan in the future. She's going to be appearing in the MCU very soon. I imagine she will be a big-time player. That last Avengers video game was essentially a Kamala Khan Miss Marvel video game disguised as Avengers. They put the Avengers on the title, but you were playing a Kamala Khan Miss Marvel video game. And I don't believe that's going to change just because they are on the outs with Sana Amanat. So, is the rumor true? I almost guarantee you that it is. Yes. This has been brewing for a very long time. I've heard about it for about a year and a half now. I predicted it actually at the end of 2020. And it wasn't just I wasn't pulling something out of my butt, or I just had a feeling. There was actually information out there. It was quite certain that this was going to be the end result of whatever was going on. It just took them much longer to get there than I thought. I didn't think it would take them like 15 months actually to get around to firing her. But once there are formal complaints and you're kind of put into the system, being in the military, we had a formal system for getting rid of people as well. And those things absolutely can take time. You got to go to legal, and there's a lot of stuff in there. There's got to be rebuttals, and I want to get into all the nitty gritty of it. So apparently that machine over at Disney takes a while to get through. And this is the end result we have. I don't believe it will be announced, but I'm sure it will be apparent within the next few weeks ahead that Sana Amanat is no longer associated with Marvel Comics. You will not see any changes as a Marvel Comics customer. I don't think you'll see any changes whatsoever. The only people that will see changes likely are the people in the Marvel Comics workspace, and maybe even Disney, because whenever, as a member of the military, we would have something like this happen, you started going to some classes, whether they be online or they got you in the auditorium and you got to go to this big long lecture and sign a list to say that you did the training. So that way, when it happens to the next person, they can say, listen, we gave you the training 8 months ago and you still did it anyway. Now we can get you out faster. It's like a CYA thing. As far as my predictions for 2021, some of them did definitely come true. This one came true a little bit late, but if you like to see it, it was actually with Perch and Joe Corallo. The video is right here. I made a lot of predictions. Not all of them came true, but the big one that did, besides this, was Jonathan Hickman absolutely left X-Men.